We are told the same lie our entire lives. Go to school, get a good job, and then spend the next 40 years grinding. Wake up at 6 in the morning, sit in traffic, tolerate a boss you do not like, and dutifully save 20% of your paycheck into your retirement account every single month. Why? So that one day, when you are 65 years old, tired, and your knees hurt, you are finally allowed to stop working and enjoy your life. That is the standard path. It is slow. It is painful. And frankly, in the year 2026, it feels more like a prison sentence than a plan for freedom. But what if I told you there was a mathematical cheat code? What if I told you there is a specific number, a specific dollar amount that you can hit in your 30s or 40s, and once you hit it, you never have to save another penny for retirement again? You do not stop working. You just stop saving. Imagine having your entire paycheck to actually enjoy your life right now, knowing your future is already secured. This is not a fantasy. It is a financial concept called coast fire. And if you do not know your number, you are probably working way harder than you need to. If this idea of buying back your freedom resonates with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more people who are stuck in the grind. And I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below as we dive into this. Let us begin with the hard truth about the year 2026. We are living in a time of incredible volatility. The cost of living has shifted, and the traditional promise of a golden watch at 65 has faded into history. According to recent data from the Federal Reserve, the typical household is approaching retirement with less than $200,000 saved. For most people, that is a terrifying reality. They have spent 4 decades working, yet they are staring down a retirement that might only last a few years before the money runs out. They have been running a marathon with no finish line in sight. Coast Fire gives you that finish line much earlier than you ever thought possible. So, what exactly is Coast Fire? You have probably heard of the regular FIRE movement, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. Those are the hardcore people who save 70% of their income, live in tiny apartments, and retire completely at age 30 with $1 million. That is impressive, but for most of us, it is miserable to get there. Coast Fire is different. It is what I like to call the Goldilocks zone of personal finance. Think about it like building a massive snowball at the top of a hill. The hardest part is the beginning. You start with a tiny little snowball in your hands, and you are pushing it through the deep snow. Your back hurts. You are sweating, and the snowball is barely getting bigger. You are working hard, saving that first $10,000, that first $50,000. It feels like a grind because your money is not making money yet. In this early stage, your contributions do 100% of the heavy lifting. But eventually, you push that snowball to the top of a giant hill. It is heavy now. It is massive. And then you let go. Gravity takes over. The snowball starts rolling down the other side all by itself, getting bigger and faster exponentially without you ever touching it again. The moment you let go of that snowball, that is your Coast Fire number. It is the point where you have invested just enough money early on that compound interest will finish the job for you by the time you reach 65. Let us look at the math, because when you see the numbers, it changes how you look at every dollar you spend. Imagine 2 people. We will call them Gary and Carl. Both of them want to retire at age 65 with a comfortable nest egg. Gary follows the traditional advice. He starts saving at age 25. He puts away $500 every single month, without fail, for 40 years. By the time Gary is 65, assuming an average 7% return after inflation, Gary has about $1.3 million. That is a solid result. But think about what Gary gave up. He had to sacrifice $500 every single month for his entire adult life. During the year 2026, with inflation creeping into every corner of the economy, that $500 could have been the difference between a family vacation and staying at home. Now, let us look at Carl. Carl decides to front-load the pain. From age 25 to age 35, Carl lives very frugally. He saves aggressively, putting away $2,000 a month into a diversified portfolio. By the time Carl is 35, he has saved up about $300,000. On his 35th birthday, Carl decides he is done. He hits his Coast Fire number. He stops contributing to his retirement account entirely. He never puts another dime into it for the next 30 years. Instead, he takes that $2,000 he was saving and uses it to upgrade his life, work a less stressful job, and travel. What happens to that $300,000 sitting in his account? He just lets it sit in a low-cost index fund like the S&P 500 at that same 7% real growth rate. By the time Carl turns 65, his $300,000 has grown into $2.4 million. Look at the difference. Carl ended up with nearly double the money Gary had, even though Carl stopped saving 30 years earlier. Why? Because Carl understood the physics of money. He let time do the heavy lifting during those crucial middle decades. This is why the first $100,000 is the hardest, but the most important milestone you will ever reach. The math is powerful, but the psychology is where Coast Fire actually changes your life. Right now, if you are like most professionals in their 30s or 40s, you probably feel an underlying sense of financial pressure. Every time you buy a nice dinner or a new gadget, there is a tiny voice in your head saying you should be saving that money instead. There is a constant background anxiety that you are not doing enough for your future self. When you hit your Coast Fire number, that anxiety vanishes instantly. The day your portfolio hits that magic threshold, you unlock a new level of freedom that most people will never experience. Suddenly, you do not need that high-stress corporate job that pays 6 figures but makes you miserable. Why were you working that job in the first place? Usually, it was to fund a future retirement. But if retirement is already funded, if it is already baking in the oven and just needs time to finish, you can quit. You could take a fun job that pays less but gives you more time with your family. You might take a pay cut, but your actual lifestyle might improve because you get to keep every single cent of your paycheck. In 2026, we call this the Great Pivot. You switch from accumulation mode to maintenance mode. Maintenance mode means you only need to earn enough to cover your current bills and lifestyle expenses. If you earn $5,000 a month and spend $5,000 a month, you are perfectly fine. Your future is already taken care of by the ghost of your younger, harder working self. That is profound freedom. Now let us talk about the specific risks of the year 2026. We have seen inflation fluctuate, and the old 4% rule is being questioned by many experts. Some suggest that in a high inflation environment, we should aim for a 3.5% withdrawal rate instead. But even with those adjustments, the Coast Fire math remains the most effective way to navigate uncertainty. By assuming a 7% real return, we are already subtracting a 3% inflation rate from a 10% historical average. This gives you a massive margin of safety. So, how do you find your specific number in 2026? It requires a two-step process of working backwards. Step 1 is determining your end goal. How much money do you actually need at age 65 to live happily? A common and reliable tool is the Rule of 25. Take your desired yearly spending in retirement and multiply it by 25. If you want to spend $80,000 a year, your target is $2 million. Step 2 is the reverse calculation. You need to figure out how much money you need today so that it grows into that $2 million by the time you are 65, without you adding anything else. If you are 40 years old today, you have 25 years left until age 65. If we assume a conservative 7% real return, you would need about $370,000 today. If you have $370,000 invested at age 40, you are theoretically done. You are at the top of the hill. You can let go of the snowball. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. What about the volatility of the market? What if the economy crashes like people have been predicting? These are valid concerns, but history shows us that over any 20 or 30-year period, the market has always recovered and grown. The biggest risk you face is not a market crash. The biggest risk is reaching age 65 and realizing you spent your entire life working for a dream you can no longer enjoy. Coast Fire is about playing the long game. It is about realizing that your greatest asset is not your salary. It is time. The earlier you front-load your savings, the less you have to work in the long run. Think about the concept of the psychology of enough. In our modern world, we are constantly bombarded with messages that we need more. A bigger house, a faster car, a more impressive title. But Coast Fire forces you to define what enough looks like for you. Once you have enough for your future, your present becomes much more vibrant. You can focus on health, relationships, and meaningful work. You stop competing in the rat race because you have already won. Most people are running a race with no end. They just run until they collapse at 65 or 70. Coast Fire gives you a finish line for the saving phase of your life. It allows you to enjoy the messy middle of your life, your 30s, your 40s, and your 50s, instead of waiting until your best years are behind you. Imagine the relief of knowing that your 65-year-old self is already taken care of. Imagine the freedom of looking at your boss and knowing that you do not actually need that next raise to survive. You are working because you choose to, not because you are a slave to a retirement account. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you to take a moment and think about your current path. Are you Gary? Or are you aiming to be Carl? If you found this breakdown helpful and want to see more strategies for reclaiming your time, please give the video a thumbs up. It really helps the algorithm show this to others who are feeling burnt out and hopeless. And do not forget to subscribe so you do not miss our future deep dives into financial freedom and life design. I would love to hear your Coast Fire number in the comments. Have you calculated it yet? Are you surprised by how close you might be? Let us start a conversation down there. The bottom line is this: money is just a tool to buy back your time. Do not spend your entire life trading your best years for a future you might be too tired to enjoy. Find your number. Build your snowball, and then let it roll. Thank you for watching, and here is to your financial freedom in 2026. Happy coasting!